Well, I think we'll get started very slowly here. As I mentioned, there should be a poll, a welcome poll. We'd love to just know what organization you're joining from. We will coordinate this with what we're seeing in the chat as well. And once again, this is going to be a style session, so we'd love for you to mute yourself. We'll hopefully have time at the end for some question and answers. If we don't, we'd love for you to stay on after the session for Q&A, as well as put any questions into the chat. We'd love to be able to answer those as we come as well. So as we start today's session, I'll just give a quick overview of our agenda. So you can go slide, Tori. We're going to we've done the quick welcome. We're going to go into some opening remarks from John. Then we'll have a brief introduction to the curriculum, moving then into some inspiration from three countries, from Bangladesh, from Uganda, and also Zimbabwe. And as we wrap up our session today, we will have a moment for reflections and next steps. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to John for some opening remarks. John Sauer from PSI.
Thanks so much, Jess. Hope everyone can hear me okay. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everybody. So I'd like to just say, let's just call it what it is. For us to be successful in solving sanitation, we've all got to get in the job creation business. That's what we're doing. Besides solving sanitation, we're actually going to be creating a lot of jobs if we're gonna make this work. To achieve universal coverage of improved and safely managed sanitation and services for the last mile, it's going to be critical to activate hundreds and thousands of sanitation businesses and ensure they are well-trained. Both technically, they're going to have to know how to install and build products for households, but they're also going to have good business sense. And they're even more importantly going to have to know how to sell those products in a good way, or it's not going to work. Activating markets and businesses and all the activities that this requires, one of the main activities is workforce development, is really the engine behind being able to achieve sustainable service delivery. Markets and businesses, this is such a critical part of a systems-led approach for solving sanitation. One important lesson PSI has learned doing this work in 14 countries over the past 13 years is that you have to put the customer first, and you need to deeply understand the customer's problem. Businesses need to sell products and services that people want, that people like, that households like, and that solve their real problems. And the businesses, when they're selling, have to really understand not only their problems, but the cost of those problems to those households, and be able to have those households deeply understand that for them to change their behavior and to actually part with money and purchase products. That's why when we do this work at PSI, we often start with an upgrade product. For example, I saw some colleagues join from Lixil, like the Sato products. I hope all of you are familiar with those products. Where feasible, those products are really excellent to on a good rung of the sanitation ladder. We've all heard of the sanitation ladder, but we don't want to put people on broken ladders. We want to get them on good, solid ladders. Another important lesson is the importance of how businesses sell, which I mentioned earlier, and that we really need to be able to coach them to do this well. Businesses need ongoing coaching and support. We can't just train them and then leave them to be, oh, okay, you're trained now, you're going to be fine. Go off and sell products. Doesn't work. They need constant support. They need ongoing coaching. So as a sanitation sector, we have to figure out how we're going to continue to provide that support for businesses and make sure that they're getting continual coaching. They need that very critically. But most importantly, you got to get started. You've got to start to engage businesses. It's okay to fail. That's why we have to use an adaptive management and learning approach as we're doing this kind of work. We've got to learn, adapt, keep going. This work always takes iteration, no matter how well we know how to do it, no matter how well trained we are, no matter how many tools and courses we have. It takes iteration, it takes consistent coaching, and we're gonna fail for sure. In every context, in any way, failure is gonna happen, and that's okay. We've got to learn from that and keep going, be adaptive, be iterative. So I wish you all the best of luck in finalizing the development of this curriculum, and have a great deliberation today. And thanks for allowing me to come in and provide these opening remarks, Jess. Back over to you.
Thank you so much, John. Yeah, and it's amazing to see the work that PSI has done all over the globe in really strengthening sanitation markets. And part of that is working with these local entrepreneurs. So thank you so much. Another poll is going to pop up on your screen now, and we'd love to know a little bit more about who you are, who's in the room today. So there'll be a few questions related to your experience with sanitation. Are you a novice or an expert? What's your experience in the private sector? And have you ever worked with sanitation enterprises? Lastly, we've got a question for you. We want to know, what do you think is the biggest capacity gap for sanitation enterprises? John highlighted that there are challenges not only with technical competencies, but also with business skills. And maybe that's what you think. But we'd love to hear from you. What do you think is the biggest capacity gap for sanitation enterprises? We'll give everyone just a moment here to fill in this poll. Also, for our speakers, feel free to fill in the poll as well. You are definitely welcome. If you got a chance to fill this in and you want to let us know that you're done, you can give us a thumbs up or a reaction just so we know where things are. I can gauge. A few thumbs up. Wonderful. Well, as we move from this experience poll, I'd love to now share a little bit about why we're here today. Yeah, Tori, thank you very much. So today we launch a curriculum called the San-Ent curriculum. It's a bit of a silly name, but the other name was much longer and we needed a short name. So today we're launching the Sanitation Entrepreneurship Curriculum, really looking at cultivating sanitation enterprises. And a little bit about me, if you don't know who I am, my name is Jess MacArthur, and I'm with the ProWash and Scale Award. ProWash and Scale supports programs in the Bureau of Humanitarian Assistance funded projects. So this could be everything from humanitarian activities all the way to resilience programming that shape more development in fragile contexts. And as part of our work, we have a peer group. This peer group meets on a monthly basis. Sometimes we meet about sanitation. Sometimes we meet about water, and we talk about the challenges that we're having as we implement resilience and food security activities. And one of the capacity gaps or the gaps that we found was that there's not good open source curriculum to train sanitation enterprises. So these are the focal businesses that operate between customers and the supply chain. So training these entrepreneurs, and there's not good curriculum out there that matches a lot of the challenges that we're seeing. And so we've adapted some curriculum that was originally designed in Bangladesh for the African context. And this was done in collaboration with colleagues from Apollo in Uganda, Preserve in Ethiopia, Spear 2 in Ethiopia, and Takunda in Zimbabwe. And we're pleased to have colleagues from Apollo in Uganda and Takunda, Zimbabwe on the call today, who will be sharing a bit more later. So today we launched the first version of this curriculum. And over the next year, we're going to be partnering with experts like yourselves to provide feedback on those materials. And also we'll be supporting programs to pilot, revise, and use this curriculum in their contexts. The pilot will be available in English, French, and Portuguese, and all of the tools are going to be downloadable as editable slides so that you can tailor them and adapt them to your context. Now, version 2 is going to be launched next year, incorporating all of your learnings. Slide. So the great guidance by UNICEF in 2021 on market-based sanitation says that the sanitation sector has learned the hard way that training masons in technical construction is not enough to catalyze the sanitation market. And we know that there is just training a mason on how to install a latrine doesn't actually catalyze that market. There is so much more to be done within the sanitation market, all the way from rules and regulations to helping shape supply chains, helping to activate demand, making sure the product system is designed right, but all of these different pieces interact together. And one way to combat this challenge is to help strengthen the enterprises who share these products and services or sell these products and services with consumers. And we want to look at their opportunity, their ability, and their motivation. And we can do this in the 4 different bubbles you see on the screen. Blue for business, purple for technical, red for marketing, and green for linkages. And the theory behind this course is that these 3 pieces together are important for building a holistic capacity for entrepreneurs. Next slide. Okay, this slide is a little scary. Don't get too much in the weeds of the diagram you see on the screen. But what I wanted to share is that sanitation entrepreneurs, you see that little missing link I don't know if I can do an annotation. Yes, I can. Right here, there's a missing entrepreneur, and that's what we're trying to fill, that gap. So who are those enterprises that are meeting the needs of consumers from a sanitation perspective, blending and in a synergistic way, supply and demand? Now, enterprises are led by these entrepreneurs, and they are the focal market actors in the local sanitation market. And again, they're the connection point between the wider market and sanitation customers. And every project that we work in will work in different contexts. They'll have different focuses and they have different funding. And so having a tailored curriculum is really important so that teams can adapt and apply things in real time. Next slide. Oh, can I get rid of my little circle? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So what is this course? There's going to be a lot of words on the screen. Don't worry about those words so much. I'm going to pull out the main parts and you will have access to these slides later. So this course is designed to support small sanitation enterprises. We're calling them SANENs, which is a silly acronym, but it helps us keep things concise, to build the capacity. That might be jumpstarting or expanding their existing sanitation businesses, increasing their sustainability. It also improving the sanitation products and services offered in their communities and filling gaps in the market that aren't addressed by public and private enterprises. The course is built on several principles. So the first one is multimodal. So it's built on adult learning principles and is applicable for low literacy contexts. It's designed to be simple and visually clear so that it's an easy guide and isn't just tons and tons of paper that you can't read through quickly. It's ongoing. So this is the first step in a coaching model rather than a one-time direct teaching. The course has 6 sessions, the curriculum has 6 sessions that ideally should be spread across time and serve as the start of a continuous coaching model. It's very adaptable. So as I mentioned before, the modules can be switched out or they can be expanded. The 24 modules that are here ideally are the core, but again, they can be changed and adapted to your context. And again, it's entrepreneurial. So it's focused less on latrine construction, which is pretty common in most contexts. Most of the masons and the entrepreneurs that we work with already know how to install a toilet. There might be additional capacities required for how to install a toilet safely or how to install a new technology. But for the most part, we're working with individuals that already have some capacity. Next slide. So who are the course participants? So we would say a selected group of prospective sanitation entrepreneurs who are clustered geographically. And this is often at a level 2 or 3 area if you're using the UN criteria. So this would be at the district level or the province level, bringing them together to a project office or a common location in order to help train them and build their capacity. The facilitators will really depend on your context. It often will be facilitated by project teams, but you might also be working through a TVET program or through local government support as well. And again, as I mentioned before, the duration of this particular course will vary based on your context. The 6 modules are designed specifically as 6 so that you can't do them in a week, because we wanted to help teams to avoid doing all of their capacity strengthening in 1 week or in a short period of time. And so the idea is that this will take some time as you're building capacity of these entrepreneurs and strengthening their capacities over time. Each module is 90 minutes, and each session is about 6 hours. So it's approximately 1 day per session. So we can think about it as 6 days of capacity strengthening. Next slide. Again, another scary slide. Don't worry if you can't read this or if it's too much content, you'll get a chance to dig in more later on. But as I mentioned, there are 6 different sessions. Across the top, those are the blue sessions. And those are the business sessions, the sessions in blue. The purple ones, again, are technical, but you notice it's not how to install a latrine. The red ones are on marketing and sales, and the green ones are on linkages to the private sector, to the public sector, to other civil society organizations, to financial institutions, and also to each other, then thinking about next steps. So why did we do it so you have 1 blue, 1 purple, 1 red, 1 green in each session? Why didn't we just do all blue on 1 day, all purple on 1 day? This is where we bring in the adult learning principles of building on knowledge over time. And once again, we didn't want to do all the business on 1 day, because if you don't build that capacity over time, you can't strengthen it in a really positive way. So it's been adapted in this way, this 24 sessions to build capacity and strengthen capacity over time in these 4 different pillars. Next slide. Here's just a snapshot of some of what the curriculum looks like. So you see in the back there's a session 2 overview. Each session will have an overview page like this, where we have a very basic information about what materials and resources you might need, as well as what the modules will cover. Then each module is a single page, and this was designed so that the teams can have them printed out and really easily adapt that context and not necessarily have to be flipping through a whole bunch of notebooks or book papers or having a huge stack. It's really designed to be simple. So 1 page for each of the modules. Then there are posters. You see the business model canvas in the background there. Once again, a standard tool, but is really a useful tool when working in contexts with low literacy, where participants can draw, they can write, or they can discuss each of those different building blocks, and literacy is not a requirement. You'll notice that aligned with the posters, there's also handouts that have very similar content in them. So the different levels of materials that people can take home or visualize on the wall. Next slide. So what are we doing today? The curriculum now is available for a view online version. We're keeping this in Google Slides. If you know me or you've ever worked with me before, you know that I'm a big fan of Google Slide documents. 1, because you can make them look nice pretty easily. 2, because you can edit them super fast. And 3, you can share them. And so we wanted this to be in a view-only document that's in Google Slides that you can easily access, change, update, and we can also access, change, and update things as we go as well. My colleague Tori is going to put a link in the chat to where this lives. The French version will be available very shortly. We're just in the final copy editing of the French, but that will be online, and we'll send that out when we send out all of the information from today's webinar. But once you get access to this, you'll be able to either download as a slide deck, as a PPTX file. You can download it as a PDF file. Or if you are a Google Drive user, you can make a copy of the file and then change it to your requirements as well. The other thing that's quite useful about using Google Slides is that you can use the Google Slide app, whether you have an iPhone or an Android phone, whatever kind of phone you have, or a tablet, to be able to access those slides and that material very easily in a simple visual format on your tablet or phone as well. And this one file contains not only the curriculum, but also the posters and the handouts. And we'll be continuing to adapt, right? So we're going to be learning as we go. We're also, as we go, adding additional notes and resources in the speaker notes for each of the slides. So we're going to be adding background information, linked resources, linked tools, or learn more. So lots of different pieces here. That was a lot. You might have questions. as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have a chance for questions at the end of today's session. But if you have any burning questions, if you want to pop them in the chat, I'd love to answer those as we go and we move into the next part of today's session. So feel free to put things in the chat if you have any questions, and another survey is going to pop up on your screen. So we have 2 questions in this poll. The first one is, what's one thing that stood out to you? And how relevant do you think that this curriculum is to you or your program? So feel free to go ahead and respond in the poll. And if you have a question, you can pop that in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. And I feel like I need to put on some music or sing or something to give you a moment here. So I don't see any questions in the chat. But I'll give you guys just a moment now. We're going to move right now into our next part of today's session, and that's just to hear from the field. Where has this been used or could be used, and where is the inspiration of this curriculum coming from? So if there are no questions, just wait just a moment longer. Yeah, no questions. Wow, either I talked way too fast, which is possible, or you guys are pros. More possible. There's one in French. Great. In the Q&A. I did not see a Q&A button. I'm moving now to Q&A. Oh, I'm not able to see the question. Tori, I think you can see the Q&A. Yeah. Let me just use my handy dandy translation software. Great question. So the question is, do the contractors have to be bricklayers? Absolutely not. And that's why this curriculum is very multi-purposed, multifaceted. In some contexts, those sanitation enterprises are bricklayers. In other contexts, they are plumbers. In other contexts, they are the manufacturing materials of cement components for latrines. And so each particular context will need to identify who are their target entrepreneurs. So once again, these are the in-between people based on your particular context for who are the best people able to meet the needs of rural customers for sanitation. So for example, in Bangladesh, these are called local service providers or local sanitation service providers. And these are manufacturers of latrine slabs and rings. And they're small businesses that are already established in that particular context. In Zimbabwe, we'll hear in just a moment, the sanitation entrepreneurs are lead masons. So not every mason will be able to become an entrepreneur. Every one of those different entrepreneurs will be focused on so those lead masons, the lead entrepreneurs, sorry, the lead masons who can become entrepreneurs will be the ones who are best able to take this type of curriculum. Sorry, I'm not sure if that's helping to answer the question. It really depends on your context. And so ProWash and Scale would be very happy to work with you as you identify who are those focal point enterprises that are best situated to meet the needs of the rural consumers in your market. And again, that really depends on where you are and what already exists as far as the sanitation market in your context. And sometimes it's trial and error. Sometimes I've worked in contexts in rural Bangladesh, in the mountains of Bangladesh, where we worked with grocers. Those were the sanitation enterprises because they were the best situated to meet the needs of the customers. But in other places, it will differ. And another question around sanitation, are we focusing mainly on toilets? This curriculum is focusing mainly on toilets, but recognizing that there are a lot of different aspects related to sanitation, but the need for most communities, the basic level is a toilet. All of the toilets that are being promoted have support for hand washing stations, also thinking about aspects for menstrual hygiene management, but we're wanting to make sure that toilets are the main component of this. Later on, we'd love to adapt this curriculum to looking at wash enterprises more broadly. That could be things focusing on people that are selling water filters. We could also look at water enterprises. So this could be local water service providers. And I think a lot of the materials built here could be adapted very easily to that. So feel free to reach out to us if that's something you're interested in. And I'll take one last question here. What are the enterprises that consider sanitation enterprises in the context of a poor country? So great question. Every single country that ProWash and Scale is working in is considered a fragile context. So this would obviously include poverty as well, but also including challenges related to supply chain or market systems failure as well. So from a poverty perspective, that's the whole point. So we're building jobs for these entrepreneurs and also working through models like subsidy provision and working with government as well as required. Again, we can't give you a one-size-fits-all model because each project will depend on their context, their funding, and their focus. So I see some more questions coming into the chat, which I'll try to respond to in a moment, but I'd like to hand it over to my colleague Monir Alam from UNICEF Bangladesh, who will share a little bit about where this curriculum originated. So over to you, Monir.
Thank you, Jess. Lovely that we worked together when we started this sanitation market-based approach program in Bangladesh, particularly 2015. We started this program. There is a background on sanitation in Bangladesh that from 80s actually UNICEF also government of Bangladesh started sanitation movement, but from there actually we used to focus on the non-subsidy approach, particularly the principal the sector adopted that there should be no subsidy for sanitation, but only promotion they adapted by like water supply. There is a lot of government subsidy going, but sanitation sector that time 80s actually that time through social mobilization they tried to promote, but it was not continued for some time. In 2003, government took over the sanitation as a key priority. That time when we did the baseline, we found that 33% people used to defecate openly, and so government took it seriously, and that time community-led sanitation CLTS approach was invented Bangladesh, and NGO-led approach, also government-led approach, and that time for the last mile people, hard to reach people, government also allow subsidy, and the movement was the 3 ring 1 slab. In that regime, the 3 ring 1 slab movement, there was few enterprise grown because there was market was created for them at the rural area. What I just mentioned that, so we have a good national level manufacturer, but they are up to the district level. You understand district, which is more a kind of at a higher level, but to reach out the community, there was gap. Who will fill the gap? Because their dealer is up to district level, sometimes sub-district level, but below that, nobody was there. People has to go far away to purchase their Latin materials. And that's why in 2015, up to 2015, we reach actually open defecation status, free status, 16 actually around. Then we, there was need because people did the basic sanitation facility, but moving up sanitation ladder was a challenge. And that time actually we introduced with ID and UNICEF with support of SDC, we introduced the sanitation market-based approach where we train those local sanitation entrepreneurs who were sitting at the commune level, like below the sub-district, 10 or 15 union parishad, they become a part of a sub-district. And actually in one, we try to focus that one union should have one entrepreneur so that people can access and to reach the last mile of people. So particularly in Bangladesh, beauty is that the Latin entrepreneur, which we focus, they actually build, Jess was mentioned that slab, Latin slab, and also that time actually our lead manufacturer, the Lixil, they invented the Satopan. And Satopan actually solved the problem because earlier there was problem of the using lot of water, and they use this $1 toilet pan, which actually takes less water and no smell. That actually popularized the Latin entrepreneur movement for engaging with the community for promotion of toilet. Particularly, they were not, as just mentioned, they knew how to build a toilet, but how to do marketing, how to do the kind of accounting, how to do nudging to go up, because mostly basic sanitation facility, and we try to actually give them training so that they can nudge customer so that they build higher up toilet, like safely managed toilet, we call it twin pit toilet, or higher up toilet. So that kind of nudging business training we also provided as a part of curriculum. Initially curriculum was 5 days, but we found that 5 days in a one shot training is too much, but we cascaded this training because we need multiple touch point, so that over 1.5 years they will be touch based with our ID staff, so that they'll be training or coach over the time and learn by doing, because they are adult. What just mentioned is difficult to compact them in a one short training was difficult. And another challenge we found that the demand creation was not part of the sanitation marketing. Then we try to link up with the CLTS approach, how to do the demand creation, sanitation, and also CAS approach, community approach of total sanitation. There actually we try to build their capacity, how to create demand, going to the business session with the community, so create the demand at the going. And also another impact on the demonstration toilet at the Latin Production Center was created more interesting for them to sell and nudge people, so that people can buy by seeing the toilet, different type of toilet option. So, and also reaching last mile was challenge, and we tried to link up with the subsidy approach. So, Jess, I finished 5 minutes.
That's good. All good. I gave you a
Yes.
couple of extra minutes, but no problem.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Really
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
Thank
It
you
was
so much,
challenging,
Monique.
but we link up with the subsidy approach, which government also did for the hardcore poor. So we call it a smart subsidy. So we link up with them and that was also institutional sales for the Latin producers, so that they can get bulk contract from the local government institute to sell more product toilet. And I
Amazing.
finish here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Munir. Yeah, and you're highlighting, Munir, this challenge of making sure that we're not only just strengthening the entrepreneurs, but there's a wider system, things like subsidy, making sure that the product system is right-sized and is effective and cost-effective for communities. So, we can work on training entrepreneurs, but we also have to do other things within the system as well. So thank you for highlighting that.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And I'd love now to pass on the baton to Joseph, formerly with the Apollo program in Uganda. We'd love to hear Joseph, how things have worked in Uganda.
Okay, thank you so much, Jess, and thank you so much, colleagues who have joined in for the call. My name is Okuda Joseph. I used to work with Save the Children in the Apollo program in Karamoja, and we were working closely with our prime, who was Mexico. And of course, I'm also happy that I have some of my team members here in the call. I see Lochi Perry here. I also see Andrew in the call, and then also Juliet Ajok in the call. I think for me, what I can just say in terms of the country in Uganda context, that we are already on track, and already MBS is gaining a very strong traction in the country, through the support of WOSHA, which was the previous program funded by USAID. I think they were able to support the entire country to develop sanitation marketing guidelines for the entire country. And that guideline has been very helpful in supporting, in actually encouraging most of the partners in the region, so in the entire country, to adopt and try to expand the practice across the different areas within the country. Also, by the time when the guideline was being released, Polo program was being implemented in Karamaja region, and it was between 2017 to 2023 when we closed the program around June 2023. But of course, in between 2018, 2019, where the OSHA program was running very, very closely in central and some bit of northern and even eastern Uganda, we already had some bit of learning from the different projects, and some of the activities that were being done by the OSHA program. We're able to collaborate with them and learn and see what they're doing and how can we improve. I think we had some good learning lessons, some of the OSHA programs. And then we also had at some point in time when we were about to close the program, we also had to reach out to Lixil and Texo. I can see Timothy here online. I think it was really very helpful in giving us some of the guidelines, some of the links, and how best we can work.
Sorry, it looks like we've got Joseph frozen on my end. Is that also the case for others?
Yeah.
All right, well, maybe while Joseph is frozen, I'll just highlight one kind of important thing is this is a great case of integrating CLTS and market-based sanitation activities together, really working in extremely complex environments in the Karamoja in northern Uganda. And when the team introduced sanitation marketing activities, as part of this, there was a 55% reduction in the number of days required between triggering and open defecation-free certification. So just to highlight that, you know, these types of approaches, including working really directly with sanitation enterprises, can be a way to jumpstart the required time for ODF certification as well. Yeah, I think he's dropped off the call, but my colleague Tori is going to put into the chat a learning brief that ProWash and Scale supported last year on the learnings from integrating sanitation marketing and CLTS and how these two activities kind of work together. So we'll try to let Joseph speak again when he comes back online. Oh, he's back. Hi, Joseph.
Hello.
Just to let you know, I shared a little bit about the reduction in number of days and also the learning brief, but you have a couple more minutes.
Oh, sorry. I had a break in internet connectivity. Like I mentioned before, I think when we had our program in Apollo, we really had a lot of improvement because we had about 30 entrepreneurs we had engaged, and we had 382 Masons that we had actually engaged, and some of the Masons we also had women in them. And I want to mention that because we blended CLTS with sanitation marketing in the region of Karamoja, just for others to know that it was quite very difficult to get an ODF community in Karamoja region. But through the introduction of Sandmark, within the third and the fourth year of the program, we saw significant improvement in terms of communities coming up and even others being declared ODF. So in a nutshell, before we introduced the program, Sandmark in 2018, 2019, 2021, we really had communities take around almost close to 2 years before they become actually ODF. But once we introduced Sandmark, actually we saw them taking less than 320 days for them to be able to declare ODF, which for me was a very strong thing. Why did this happen? Because we had a number of follow-up visits to be conducted. We had the communication being done by Masons. And then we also had a number of support from the government actors trying to ensure that we have the communities accelerate and try to scale up sanitation activities within the districts. For me, at that time when we were doing this program, we really didn't have a clear curriculum, but we had to adopt different curriculum from different areas, from UNICEF, from WashPals, for training entrepreneurs. But now we are quite happy that with this, if this man had come earlier on enough, yes, we would have done a lot more in terms of helping entrepreneurs, in terms of financial linkages. Because this was the area that actually we struggled to ensure that the entrepreneurs access finances or wash loan for them to be able to improve their businesses. So I think this curriculum will help us to see how best we can support our communities even in Uganda moving forward. That's what I can share with you. Thank you so much. I know that we had a learning brief, which ProWash supported us to develop, and the learning brief is already actually online in the ProWash platform. So guys can easily get online and try to read more about how we did the CLTS activity at Sandmark in Karamoja. People didn't believe it would work in Karamoja region, but we really show that even in the poorest communities, they're able to buy products. When we did the last survey of the program, we had 79% of communities saying that they bought wash products. Some bought liquid soap, some bought sasato pan, some bought jerry cans for hand washing, tip taps, and even some bought even some of the sato products that we had, particularly in other communities where we are working in southern Karamoja region. Otherwise, that's it from me. Thank you so much, Jess. Sorry for the break.
No problem, Joseph. Yeah, and I just really want to highlight, like, we've gone from Bangladesh, which is, where the population density is insane in a positive way. There's just a lot of people, and then we've gone from that context to Karamoja, where we have the opposite challenge. And so, wanting to highlight that we really tried to create a curriculum that is flexible. So a lot of the questions coming in are, well, can we do it in this way? Can we do it in this way? And my answer is yes. Feel free to take this curriculum and to adapt it to the context in which you are working. That's why we wanted to provide these kind of foundations that can be very adaptable. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joseph. Really lovely to hear from you. And we're going to now move to our last speaker, which is Delilah. Delilah is joining from Zimbabwe today. And Delilah is going to share from a very new sanitation market in a Zimbabwean context. Thanks, Delilah.
Thank you, Jess. So I'm Delilah Takawira, the social and behavior change lead for Takunda Reef Sign, Zimbabwe. So market-based sanitation is not as well developed in Zimbabwe as in other countries, as you've just heard here. We have one ventilated improved pit latrine design, which we call the Blair VIP, based on the name of the research center that developed it way back in 1973. So this design is widely preferred for its effectiveness in controlling odor and flies, and it is the only design that is approved for promotion by the Minister of Health here in Zimbabwe. So the sanitation and hygiene policy in Zimbabwe now aims to ensure open defecation-free Zimbabwe by 2030, focusing on community-led behavior change approaches and working with local authorities and communities to discourage open defecation. And I guess this move came out of the realization that prior methodologies of providing cement for the construction of these BVIPs was proving not sustainable. So the main sanitation promotion activities involve the CLTS triggering training of latrine builders or lead masons in building the BVIP. Now, when Takunda started in 2020, to help inform the Takunda sanitation strategy, we partnered with ProWash and used human-centered design approach to engage the communities in the areas where we are working to understand the factors that motivate for sustainable latrine construction and use. So this is in the 4 districts situated southeastern of Zimbabwe, where Takunda is operating. So findings from the here phase of that human-centered design approach included, we identified the motivators for latrine construction. So this included things like shame. So for example, when people are having a household is expecting visitors, or just other people knowing that they don't have a latrine, replacements for those latrines that may have collapsed due to cyclones and other weather-related issues. Prestige, some people actually desire the high-end look or latrines that look more like the urban latrines. Community momentum, so out of, say, triggering processes happening in communities. So these were some of the emerging motivators for latrine construction in the communities we're working in. We also identified people's preferences on the designs of that very same BVIP, but things like the need for a form of security, because latrines in rural Zimbabwe are also used as bathrooms. So people actually bath within the same. So women in particular required some form of security or safety. So the open design where there is no door made some people actually worry. Shapes of the squat walls. We saw that there were some designs where the squat walls were so small. And then also need for seats for older people who struggle with squatting. What we also identified was that latrine builders were often trained as part of some of the sanitation activities in Zimbabwe. They are seen primarily as contractors and not sanitation advocates or marketers, as it were. Their training was mainly technical with no business or marketing aspects included. There was therefore need to integrate a business module into the latrine builders this training focused on 4 areas. That's what we identified: business practices, linkages, marketing, alongside the technical skills of the bricklaying and constructing the design of the BVIP. We also identified the need to reinvigorate the local private sector to supply and encourage improved latrines. So this would be through bundling materials for latrine construction, and this is by the suppliers of the materials for building latrines within rural communities in Zimbabwe, so local businesses or businesses within growth points. So we identified an opportunity that they could bundle the materials that are needed to construct the BVIP, so including things like the cement, but also in addition, the vent pipes, the fly screens, and in some cases, the appropriate toilet seats for those people that would prefer that. And coupled with that, having behavior change communication materials like posters and pamphlets to give to customers and encourage construction of the proper BVIP with all its features. Another thing we identified was the need to educate and foster relationships with the private sector to improve components. So when you talk to rural communities in the areas we work, you often hear that cement is the major challenge. It's beyond the reach, it's too expensive for majority of households. So we had envisioned activities like working with manufacturers of cement for community-wide campaigns, and also engaging manufacturers of things like the toilet seats that people want, to ensure that they produce appropriate seats for pit latrines. So some that are more wider at the bottom than at the top to avoid soiling and make cleaning easier. So given the macroeconomic environment in Zimbabwe, where there is significant inflation and partnership with private sector is a little challenging, our efforts were not as fruitful with the last 2 identifications. And so we focused on more working with the latrine builders to also serve as sanitation entrepreneurs, as it were. Takunda has since identified latrine builders as important local service providers to sustain latrine construction and use in the areas where we're working now and beyond the lifespan of Takunda as a project. So we've gone ahead to also identify some of these latrine builders to serve as sanitation promotion entrepreneurs. So this new curriculum provides an opportunity to build the capacity of these cadres in a manner that ensures continued latrine construction and achievement of the aim of open defecation-free Zimbabwe by 2030, but at the same time, while also making reasonable income to sustain their livelihoods. So as John said in his opening remarks, ongoing coaching and mentoring of the sanitation entrepreneurs is essential. So Takunda has just started on implementing the project sustainability strategy, and we have the next 3 years to not only train, but also to coach, mentor, and support these identified lead masons to be effective sanitation entrepreneurs, marketing and promoting the BABIP within the communities we're working in. Thank you, and back to you, Jess.
Thanks so much, Delilah. Yeah, excellent. It's just so great to see how, even in complex environments, finding out who the right people are, who are these leverage points, is actually really an important step. And trying to understand, as the chat was happening, about what is the appropriate product mix, what is the appropriate latrine, and are there opportunities to expand beyond just latrines? We've talked a lot about latrines today, and that's been quite purposeful because one of the biggest challenges is around latrine construction. But also, just to note that the same curriculum can be used looking at hand washing kits and detergents. Sanitation marketing was originally designed primarily focused on latrines, but often these rural entrepreneurs or urban entrepreneurs also can sell things like hand washing and detergents, and that can offer additional income. But again, it always depends on your context, and each context is very different. So with that said, I'd love to move to our next slide. And we've talked a lot about how the sanitation entrepreneurs are just a little piece in this bigger puzzle as we think about systems strengthening and market systems strengthening for sanitation and water more broadly. And as I mentioned in the chat, ProWash and Scale has been working with IRC on the Wash Systems Academy to refresh a course on market-based sanitation. We've broken the course into 2. One is the basics and one is in-depth. And as I mentioned, the basics is 2 hours and the in-depth would be a day. And the idea behind this is to really understand all of the different pieces that work together to support the private sector in supplying latrines. And just to note, that doesn't mean we're excluding the government. The government is an extremely important partner in this, and this doesn't mean that it's not pro-poor as well, working with things like subsidies, vouchers, village savings and loans programs, financing for rural and urban poor households is one important aspect of market-based sanitation. Now, again, primarily focusing on latrines because that is one of the biggest challenges, but that doesn't exclude other aspects like hand washing kits and detergents, which have been successful. Just as a quick note, often hand washing and soap is sold by a different entrepreneur than a latrine. So the latrines are often sold by a hardware shop or by a cement manufacturer, where soap is usually sold by a grocer. And so it really depends on understanding and mapping your context, which are the people that we want to work with. So watch this space. We hope that the English short course will be available any day. The courses will be available in French, English, and in Portuguese. Next. So how can you be involved? So many of you are working on market-based approaches. You're working in your context. You have great experiences, examples, tools, and resources. And very seldom do those great examples, tools, and resources get off of your hard drive and shared with the wider global community. So the first thing is we would love for you to share case studies, tools, and resources. I'm going to be putting yeah, thank you, Tori. She's just put a link in the chat. So there's be a form for you to fill out. We'd love for you to share. We'd love for you to register as a peer reviewer. As we know, this is the first draft of this curriculum. So we'd love to have your input. We cannot make the curriculum everything to all programs, but we do want to make it a core version that can be adaptable for your context. So that's 2, register as a peer reviewer. You can also register as a peer reviewer for the market-based sanitation course. As I mentioned, course 2 will be coming out by the end of the year, and we would love to have your feedback if you feel like you are an expert in market-based sanitation. You can also register your program as a sanitation entrepreneurship pilot. So if you want to try this curriculum, see how it's working in your context, tailor it and adapt it to your context, we would love for you to do that and then share back how it worked for you. So you can register your program or your activity as a SanAmp pilot. And then lastly, if you would like to, you can take the online refreshed market-based sanitation courses or support your teams to do so. So there are lots of ways that you can get involved in helping to support market-based sanitation or sanitation marketing in your context. And just as a reminder, we've talked a lot about toilets. It doesn't just have to be toilets. We would love to help think about ways this could be adapted to water, to hand washing, and to other sectors as well. So yeah, feel free. We would love, yeah, just really love for you to take a look at that, the Google form. Please register your interest. If you've registered your interest, I will be reaching out in the coming weeks with more information. So be sure to leave your email address. Just a couple of quick dates and important things as we start this process. The market-based sanitation case study sharing will be open until the 15th of November. The course peer review will be open until the 30th of November. The peer review for this curriculum that is launched today will be open until the end of this calendar year, and the pilot will be until the end of Q2 next year, but we are very flexible. If you start a bit later, that's also fine. We just want to make sure that this course or curriculum has a chance to get tried in the real world in more contexts, and that we can learn from your experiences. So we're not saying that we have all the answers, we just have hopefully a good starting point. Wonderful. So as we wrap up today with another final poll we'll be launching on the screen, we would love to just hear from you how today went, how was today's session, what worked, what didn't work. This helps us to do better next time we meet because we really enjoyed having you all on the call today. And if there are any further questions for our panelists or for myself, please feel free to type them in the chat or stay on after today's session. We would love to still hear from you. And once again, all your questions were fantastic. So thank you so much for adding, adding into the chat. Maybe also just to note that the course 1 and course 2 on market-based sanitation that will be on the WASH Systems Academy is a really great starting place if you're having questions of who could be the right entrepreneur, who should these people be, what is the right products mix, how do we do subsidy? If these are the types of questions that you're having, I recommend before you jump into the entrepreneurship curriculum, looking a bit more into market-based sanitation practices and principles through the course, because that will help you to understand a lot of the terms, the terminology, and the principles that we're using in this course as well. Wonderful. Well, that ends the end of our hour. We've really enjoyed hearing from you, and we look forward to hopefully having some of you pilot this program, these materials. We really want them to be better. Like I said, this is version 1, and the curriculum. Yeah, my colleague will be putting a link in the chat. Again, Tori, if you can do that, the link to the Pro Wash and Scale page, and that will be able to access the curriculum. And again, if you are using the curriculum, I really do recommend that you register using that Google form so we know that you're using it and we can help you because we want to support you in that process. There's a link. Thanks so much, Tori. And we'll be sending out an email. Yeah, the French will be available soon. We'll be sending out an email to all of the participants with all of the information shared, links, recordings in a week's time. Thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciated you coming today. Thanks all. Take care.